Welcome back to the Broken Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett. In our last episode, we uncovered the Illuminati, a secret-born order in Bavaria that became legend. Tonight, we turn to another brotherhood, one that shaped America's birth and whose influence is still felt today, the Freemasons. Freemasonry is not myth or fantasy. It's a real fraternity with long history, famous members, coded rituals, and symbols etched into the foundations of the United States. George Washington wore a Masonic apron when laying the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol. Benjamin Franklin was Grand Master of a lodge in Philadelphia. Across Europe and America, some of the most influential men of their age were Freemasons. But what did Masonry really teach? What do the symbols mean? And does its hidden influence still stretch into our lives today? Let's dig in. To understand the Masons, we must go back to the Middle Ages. In its earliest form, Freemasonry was a guild of stonemasons, builders of Europe's cathedrals and castles. These men organized into lodges to protect trade secrets, train apprentices, and regulate their work. By the 1600s, something shifted. As cathedral building slowed, lodges began to admit honorary members who were not stonemasons. These were philosophers, nobles, and merchants, men fascinated by symbolism, morality, and fraternity. This transformation gave rise to what we call speculative Freemasonry, where tools of stonework like the compass, square, and plumb line became metaphors for building moral character and society. In 1717, the first Grand Lodge was formed in London, creating an organized structure that soon spread across Europe and into the American colonies. Masonry promised equality, brotherhood, and truth in an age still ruled by monarchs and clergy. Its secrecy, however, guaranteed that suspicion would follow. History proves that Freemasonry was not just a pastime. It was a fraternity of influence. George Washington was initiated in 1752 at Fredericksburg Lodge in Virginia. He attended meetings as a young officer and laid the Capitol cornerstone in 1793 in full Masonic regalia. Benjamin Franklin served as Grand Master of Pennsylvania's Masons in 1734 and printed one of the first Masonic books in America. Paul Revere was a member of St. Andrew's Lodge in Boston, later Grand Master of Massachusetts. His lodge was closely tied to revolutionary politics. John Hancock, another patriot, was also a Mason at St. Andrew's Lodge. James Monroe, the fifth president, belonged to Williamsburg Lodge No. 6 in Virginia. Andrew Jackson, the seventh president, served as Grand Master of Tennessee's Lodge from 1822 to 1824. The Marquis de Lafayette, the French hero of the Revolution, was initiated in France and active during his time in America. Winston Churchill was initiated in 1901 at St. John's Lodge No. 494 in London. And even Voltaire, the Enlightenment philosopher, joined the Lodge of the Nine Sisters in Paris shortly before his death in 1778. This list spans centuries and continents. Freemasonry was not fringe. It was a network of men at the center of political, philosophical, and military power. Symbols are the heartbeat of Masonry, and they're everywhere in American iconography. The all-seeing eye, or eye of providence, symbolizes the watchful eye of the great architect of the universe. In Christianity, it symbolized divine oversight. On the U.S. Great Seal, adopted in 1782, it appears above an unfinished pyramid. Historian David Oveson argues this reflects Enlightenment ideals of progress under divine guidance. The unfinished pyramid has 13 levels, representing the colonies and the building of a new nation. In Masonry, pyramids also symbolize endurance, mystery, and ancient worship. The overlap is striking, a national emblem layered with symbolic meaning. The compass and square is the most famous Masonic emblem. The square represents morality, living honestly and fairly. The compass represents boundaries, keeping passions and desires within limits. These appear carved on countless American cornerstones laid by Masonic lodges. As for Washington, D.C., some believe its layout encodes pentagrams and Masonic symbols. While the star-like design mostly reflects Baroque city planning, it is true that Masons oversaw cornerstone rituals for major buildings. These ceremonies, more than the map itself, are where Masonic influence is most visible. America's symbols drew from shared Enlightenment imagery, but Masonry's use of the same icons makes it difficult to dismiss deeper influence. Freemasonry's secrecy fueled both loyalty and paranoia. The most famous American scandal was the Morgan Affair of 1826. William Morgan, who threatened to publish Masonic rituals, vanished, allegedly murdered by outraged Masons. The case sparked outrage and birthed the Anti-Masonic Party, America's first third political party. Critics accused Masons of elitism, corruption, and heresy. The Catholic Church condemned Masonry repeatedly, labeling it incompatible with faith. In Protestant America, secrecy alone was enough to raise suspicion. The myths multiplied that Masons plotted revolutions, manipulated governments, and worshipped occult powers. While much was exaggeration, the persistence of fear reflected Masonry's undeniable reach. So this leads us to the question, could Masonic control still exist today? Pretty controversial question. But from what we know, Freemasonry today presents itself as a charitable fraternity, yet it still attracts prominent figures, holds closed meetings, and practices elaborate rituals. Could Freemasonry still act as a hidden power of influence? Masonic lodges historically created trust networks and facilitated businesses, politics, and patronage. Even today, membership offers networking advantages. Some scholars argue that Masonry helped create the American civic order, a model for voluntary associations, philanthropy, and elite clubs. Modern conspiracy theorists point to overlapping membership in politics, banking, and military institutions as evidence of this influence. While no proof exists of centralized global control, it is true that Masonic traditions trained men to think in hierarchies of secrecy and symbolism. In short, Freemasonry may not be pulling puppet strings, but it represents a model of elite networking that endures. The symbols in our capital, the rituals at cornerstones, the fraternity of presidents, these are traces of a brotherhood that believed in guiding society from behind closed doors. And the question remains, does that pattern of hidden influence ever truly end? Even today, whispers of Masonic influence echo through our society. We live in a world where symbolism and rituals still matter. Masonic lodges continue to practice their secret handshakes, coded gestures, and ceremonial oaths, traditions that stretch back centuries. For outsiders, these rituals are often dismissed as harmless pageantry. But for those who believe in the hidden power of networks, they are signs of a deeper system at work. There are theories, some dismissed as too far-fetched, others whispered in quiet conviction, that Masons protect their own. That within courts, government, or business, a fellow Mason is bound by the old maxim to care for a brother above all else. The claim goes like this. If a Mason finds himself before a judge who is also a Mason, the bond of fraternity might outweigh the letter of law, that charges vanish, that punishments soften, that loyalty transcends justice. Is this an exaggeration, or a glimpse of how hidden networks really function? Because the strength of Freemasonry has never been its symbols alone. It lies in a web of trust and obligation created by secrecy. And if that trust runs through positions of power, judges, politicians, bankers, even clergy, then the system is not easily challenged. Some point to Masonic writings themselves, paraphrased in warnings that the order will endure in plain sight, that the public, the so-called layman, is too ignorant, too distracted, or too skeptical to believe what is right before their eyes. So we are left with the question, are these theories proof of paranoia, or are they signs that our society is so carefully guided by the hands we cannot see? The honest answer may lie somewhere in between. History gives us reason to doubt blind paranoia, There is no definitive proof that Masonry operates as a shadow government pulling strings in every courtroom or legislative chamber. Many members are everyday men, factory workers, teachers, small-town leaders, who see Masonry as a social or charitable fraternity. To dismiss them as conspirators would be unfair. But history also gives us reason to stay vigilant. The structure of Masonry, secret oaths, coded rituals, and a vow to aid one another creates the conditions for influence. At its height, it was not paranoia to say that Masons helped each other rise to positions of authority. That was the point of the fraternity. Even today, the idea of brother helping brother is not hidden. It's celebrated within their lodges. So perhaps the real danger is not a global puppet master, but a network. Subtle, loyal, and unspoken. That can tilt decisions, shield members, and reinforce hierarchies of power. It doesn't have to be absolute control to matter. Influence, by definition, works in ways that remain unseen. And as long as secrecy is part of Masonry's DNA, suspicion will never die. Maybe that's the true paradox. Even if Freemasonry is not ruling the world, it thrives precisely because the world cannot prove otherwise. This has been episode 2 of The Broken Truth. We trace Freemasonry from medieval guilds to Enlightenment lodges. We named prominent figures who wore the apron and decoded the symbols carved into America's foundation. We examined the scandals that dogged Masonry and asked whether its influence continues quietly today. Next time, we move into the Cold War, exploring the CIA's secret mind control experiments known as MK Ultra. Until then, I'm your host Garrett, and remember, the truth is rarely whole. It's broken. If you enjoyed this episode of The Broken Truth, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. For more research, resources, and bonus content, visit our website at thebrokenTruthPodcast.com. While you're there, join our email list so you never miss an episode or update. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can chat with us directly through our site and connect with others who are searching for the truth.